very few people know that I've known Sheila even pre-Wild Wild Country days. I grew up in a house where both my parents were believers of Osho, and I read and heard Osho while growing up. In fact, when my dad used to listen to Osho cassettes in his car, so I had gone and met Sheila in Switzerland, and at that time there was no Wild Wild Country, and that's why I had gone with a completely clear slate. I had no judgments, no labels. I just was trying to understand the story, and ever since then, I found the story, her, so fascinating. And once Wild Wild Country came out, things started to change. All of a sudden, there was, the spotlight was on her again. And for me, when she was revisiting India after 35 years, it was so fascinating to kind of see her travel through India, through her home, which is something that she's always spoken about, that she's always wanted to revisit. But now she was traveling back to this country with the spotlight on her, and I wanted to kind of explore that. I wanted to explore what does it take, for somebody like her who's constantly under the weight of public scrutiny, and, how does that weight play on her as she goes through. The journey she's been on is so up and down and crazy that people just have so many questions every time they meet her. And nobody comes in with just a regular introduction. They want to, the first thing is like, did you do it? How was it? What would happen? And those are the kind of questions. And for her, she's lived with these questions for so long that it just, she can now, and for me, it's fascinating to see how she responds to the world, because somebody who's lived with that many questions all her life, and she's never chosen to hide anything. When she was in Switzerland, just like me, there were other people who were calling her, and she was open to meeting anybody and anyone. And she often says this, that she was living in a place of no opinion. She was, on the interview right now, and she was talking about how for the last 3 decades of her life, she has lived in a place where there were no opinions about her. And now all of a sudden, as she travels again, there are people. And for me, it's not my place to answer those questions, but at the same time, as a filmmaker, as a storyteller, there's so much to learn about, not just about her, but also about who we are as people, and cancel culture. I think cancel culture is such an important thing in today's time, where we decide what we think the person should react and what is the right reaction, and whether they deserve another chance without even asking them what they feel like. And I think it's about us giving our judgments even before understanding the other person. And I think that for me becomes a really good reflection of where we are today. One of the most important things is, how do we come across to other people? What's fascinating is that how does someone like Sheila navigate through that world? And for me, what I find extremely intriguing is the same people who'd ask for autographs and selfies and pictures, or the same people who would, 5 minutes later ask her all these questions, and kind of you can see them smirking and talking about, we know about this, we saw Wild Wild Country, and it's like, where does that leave us as people? And as I said, for me, her story is absolutely goldmine for a storyteller, but it's also sometimes interesting to kind of look at the people around her. And I think we've tried to kind of see both. She was there to kind of reply back to everything. And for me, that had been, for the most part of the world, that's been the most attractive side of her. And that's what they want to hold on to. But also we define people with one personality trait, and we want them to be just that, as you said. But people and life and age, all of that has much more. And I think they always spoke about how things are not just one way or the other. It's everything together. And I think that's the other thing. I think this documentary allows you to kind of get a peek into the other side, because it's like when we see, like, even film stars, we think they are like that all the time. They are like film stars all the time. But when you get an intimate look at their lives, you realize everyone's just going through life the way you are. And there's so much to learn from that. There's so much strength you can get from that. Human beings are like each other, regardless of what we judge them as, whether we hate them, like them. In many ways, we are alike. And I think there, in that understanding, lies a bigger truth, where we can start to communicate more, where we can start to understand, empathize, love, compassion. And I think those are the stories I'd like to tell, we followed her around for 15 or 16 days. It's the kind of footage we had was, it's impossible to hold audience's attention for that long if you just put it out. So you're always looking for the spine of the story as a storyteller, and anybody who's trying, even Herzog said that facts don't give truth. It's the emotional truth that you're after. And for us, when we were trying to find the story, this, as I said, this was a homecoming story after 35 years. So it was really trying to put together the spine of the story from the place of kind of cancel culture and the weight that she has to carry around, as everyone kind of constantly comes and asks her these questions. People who love her, people who hate her. How does her life shape up with all of the constant attention from people, And I think that was the spine of the story we were trying to build. And that's why, it's as I said, it's a 55-minute piece about that. It's not an investigative piece. Those are things that I think Wild Wild Country tried to achieve. And there are obviously a bigger story that I'd like to explore when it comes to Rajneeshpuram, Osho, Sheela and Osho, in a TV series that is currently under development. And this is a very small, intimate, tiny little peek into the world as she revisits India.
Subscribe to Midday India. Get direct notifications on all our videos by clicking on the bell icon.